Today I'm going to show you how I built this stag head wall decor. Let's build that. I started out by buying 6 fence posts or fence slats. If you had some lying around, you could use those too. It would work just as well. Since I'm hanging this above a queen size bed, I decided to cut them down to 60 inches because that's the width of a queen mattress. So I just stacked them all together, clamped them, and cut them with the circular saw. It only cut through 3, so I had to do 2 cuts. And then I used this steel with the holes punched in it. It was a 6-foot rod, and I just measured out the width of all the boards together, 33.5, and I went down to 31 inches, and I marked 2 31-inch sections, and using a hacksaw I just cut the steel into 2 sections, 31 inches. These will be my end bandings. Since the wood was kind of rough, I decided to sand all the faces of each board individually and then clean up the cut sides and clean up the end corners just to give it a smooth finish. And I chose to stain them a really dark Kona stain. You could do this after they're put together, but I think it comes out better if you stain it beforehand, because if you screw them all together and then stain it, you might see blonde wood between the cracks, and staining them all separate just guarantees that you can get the edges with good coverage and you won't see any wood once it's all put together. So I stained the ends and all the sides of all 6 boards and set them aside to dry for about 24 hours. Once they were dry on 5 of the boards, I drilled 3 pocket hole screws, 1 in the middle, and the 2 outsides were about a foot in. Once those were all drilled, I clamped all the boards together, squared them up, and just put 3 screws joining all the boards to make one big backing board. My table wasn't big enough to hold all 6 boards, so I did 4 first and then used the clamps as a kind of support and screwed the last 2 boards on. The 3 pocket screws isn't really enough to give it super rigidity, so it's still kind of flimsy, but it just keeps them from falling apart. And then I just centered my strapping about 6 inches in on each side, and I used these chicken wire lattice screws because they had a big enough head not to go through the holes in the steel banding. Once I anchored each end, I put a screw every 3 holes. It just worked out that it gapped 2 holes between each screw. You might have to adjust your numbers based on your measurements, and I just screwed one on one side 6 inches in and the other on the other side 6 inches in as well, even from the top and bottom, and it gives you a nice banding look and finishes up the edges. So there it is. To hang it on the wall, I decided to use a French cleat, so I just took a scrap piece of MDF and cut it in half at a 45-degree angle, and then I mounted 1/2 to the top of it with 3 holes at first, and it seemed a little weak, so I ended up going back over and putting a couple more screws in. I just measured it 3 inches down from the top, but you got to make sure this is perfectly level because you can't go back and adjust the level, and you want to make sure that the 45 is facing down. And then I centered my screw for my stag head, screwed it into the board, test fitted it, make sure it was where I wanted it, and then it went to hanging it up on the wall. So I found a stud around the center of the wall, and I found the 2 studs to each side, and I transfer those measurements over to the other half of my French cleat. So 1 kind of in the center and then 16 inches off each end. I put a screw hole so that I could get 3 good screws anchored directly into the stud. I screwed the center one in, and make sure your ceiling's level, and then I leveled the board to the ceiling because the gap will show if your ceiling isn't level. And I put the other 2 screws in to securely anchor the French cleat and make sure this thing will not fall off the wall. Now it's just a matter of hanging it up and checking to make sure it's centered. The bed's moved right now, but we plan on centering the bed on the center of the room once this is done, and throw on the stag head to finish it off, and boom, there you go, stag head wall decor. So all in all, I spent $60 on this project. 40 of it was the head. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you followed along, and if you're interested, go ahead and make one. Thanks for watching. I really hope you liked the video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or suggestions for a future video, feel free to leave a comment. If you want to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Like always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next project.
Oh, too hard. Let Dad do it. Hey, Daddy. It's too high in there. It's loud.
Yeah, measure the wall. You gonna measure the wall?
Hey, Mom, go.
Mommy went bye-bye. Measure the wall?
Yeah. Oh. It's not breaking no more.
Good job.
Is that true?